Hello. Not so long ago, Ian Boyd spent his days laying pavers, building retaining walls and designing gardens. Recently, he's been the Vice President of the South Australian Children's Book Council of Australia, and his previous career as a gardener and landscape designer instilled in him a passion for everything outside beneath the sun. His strange obsession for seeing life through an animal's eyes began with a copy of the book Watership Down, which sat on his bedside table through much of his youth. And now he's sitting here. Hello, Ian Boyd.
Hello, Malcolm. How are you?
I'm delighted to have you on the program.
Good.
Now, this came out of a chance conversation on the phone. The interview, came out of that. And you've had a very interesting career in many aspects. Let's start from the beginning. Why a landscape designer, if you had a passion for all these other things?
It came about without a choice, really. I guess I used to work for my family, and my dad retired and sold the shop. That's when I went into children's entertainment first. And then when my wife wanted to have a second child, I had to actually get a real job where I had to start paying some bills, etc. And so I just went, I'll buy a lawn mowing round. And most people...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, most people start in lawn mowing, move on to something else, be tree lopping, whatever.
I never thought of that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's sort of an entry-level thing, and then I decided to go down the landscaping path. I can't say why, I just probably liked doing that.
Well, let's go back to talking about a children's entertainer, because you travelled around all over the place, and we've got a photo of you and your wife.
Yep.
I'm a bit worried when we see this photo of you and your wife. She doesn't look like a lady that you would get married to.
No, she looked pretty good underneath all that. It was just so no one else could see her. I kept her hidden away. But yeah, it was. She was dressed as a kangaroo. I think that was probably the hardest part of the whole show because we did some shows in really hot conditions under glass roofs and
fantastic!
Way up north, and I think Michelle's seen Bacana Bilby up mid north at things ever since then, and thought the poor kid inside that would be hot.
Well, having worked with suit characters a lot in the past, yes, it is very hot inside.
Yeah, and kind of claustrophobic. It's until you actually tried it.
Well, actually, it is, because you can see so little out, and kids are just at the wrong height often when they run up to you.
Yeah, and actually we've had been at a shopping centre where some 12-year-old boys decided they were going to start pulling the tail, punching the kangaroo.
Used to be the thing with Humphrey Bear.
Yeah.
To try and get a reaction. Bit sad. But did you enjoy that? Where did you go? What was the name of the show?
It was called Kangaroo Creek Gang Roadshow. We did the South Australian version. It was originally, I think, with the State Bank in South Australia.
Yes.
And when that went bankrupt, another crowd took it over, and then we took it over from them. And it was, and a lot of people liked the kangaroo better than Humphrey. Not there was anything wrong with Humphrey, I would never say that, but
no.
A lot of kids apparently, with colour, etc., they found it a lot easier to relate to the kangaroo, I think. So we did hear that a bit.
The thing was, Humphrey was much bigger when kids saw him in the flesh, and often would be a bit terrified by this huge bear, whereas on the screen he was only this big. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're little things that you don't realise when you're working in television, the size you are in somebody's home. Yeah. Different now with the big screens, of course.
Yeah.
Could be almost any size. So with the landscape design, did you have a flair for that initially, or...?
I wouldn't say so.
It just grew?
It just grew, yeah.
And you didn't mind hard work?
No, I like hard work, yeah. I like physical, I like being outside. And I still now, I go for a walk in the morning and I come home, and sometimes I go, I'd probably rather stay outside. But I do like being outside, and often if I'm walking with Michelle, she'll go, it's raining, and I'm going, this is not raining, this is just like a bit of dampness. But
it's just moist air.
It's just moist air, yeah. And yeah, often it'd be 38 degrees and you've mowed someone's lawn or pruned something, and you knock on the door and they go, boom, how hot is it out here? And you're kind of going, I'm used to it, I've been out here since this morning.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But now your love of the outside, and just talk about, this was your first book, wasn't it?
Yep. So the strange beginnings of me wanting to write. I mean, I've always written music, but I hadn't ever really written books. And then it was about probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was not long after my mother died, and I'd written the speech for my mum's funeral, and I actually found that really good experience. But I created a world that Mum would have been living in that would have had everything she loved in her life.
Right.
I called it Helen's Garden.
Right.
And from doing that, I realised I really liked creating this place. So I thought, I'm going to be a writer. And I wasn't a big reader, actually. And so that just came out of nowhere. Mum taught me to play piano a little bit, and then I taught myself.
Well, it's a big book. I mean, there's a lot of writing and reading in it.
Yeah, well, that's young adult. So,
yes.
And I guess it was just, I just made up. She lives in the Himalayas, and
the character in the book.
And she was in a little village, and long story, she ends up with a piano and teaches herself to play, and it's like a spiritual connection she has with the bird on the cover.
Right.
And it just went off on a massive tangent, and that's what I like with writing.
So you've got a great idea, you turn out a book, do you take it to a publisher? What happened?
I didn't, actually. I probably knew from that early point that I wasn't going to be up to the standard they'd be looking for yet, but I wanted to go through the whole process.
I don't know, when you look at the structure of how you've written, it's great.
Well, I mean, I did have some good reviews from it, from around the world, but I guess I didn't think that I would be good ugh yet. And
because it was your first?
Because it was my first.
But did you write at school like essays that teachers were amazed with?
Maybe not amazed, but I was okay at it. Yeah, and I always wrote poetry, and I was okay with words. I just probably didn't do it at school as much.
Right.
I used to. I've actually got a story I tell where a mate of mine was having trouble getting a girlfriend, and he asked me to write a poem, and I wrote a poem. And she became his girlfriend, so that's how he got his girlfriend. And it was...
So you were the wingman?
I was the wingman, yeah. And I guess I always did have a way with words, I think. I just didn't really put it to use very well. And I often think that my dad was pretty anti my imagination. He found that it was probably a negative impact on my life.
So I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm assuming we're in a similar vintage. And I suppose the upbringing of parents, if you were alive in the 50s, after the war, it was all about getting a job, making a home, having a family, moving on in life.
Yep.
And I guess any sort of performance or writing or imagination was not really considered the right path for somebody, particularly a male in those years.
Particularly, yeah. And Mum was creative, Dad wasn't at all. And like he went along with that. A lot of that kind of thing.
They created you.
They created me. but it was not something that I don't think he was really proud of that kind of thing. He was more proud if I did something physical, hard work.
So he was proud of your gardening years?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Because he used to own a couple of garden centres. So he preferred that I went down that path. Yeah.
So the motive for writing this book was basically because of your mother?
Partly. I don't really know what the motive was until later. I probably started thinking, from Mum's death, and I started changing the way I saw things. Both my parents had died at that point, and it was kind of for me a strange feeling like I don't have to worry about what they think anymore.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
And
we do take our parents' opinions very seriously when we're young.
Yeah.
We want to please them.
Yeah. And I mean, it was, Mum would have loved that I was doing it. It's not that she would have ever had a problem with it, but it was just for some reason the world went that way, and I thought I'm going to start writing. And I've always kind of been a bit that way where I'm going to do this now.
Right. Well, so your second book was this one.
Yep. So after Medilla, I decided I need to get better at this and start reading more. So I read a lot now, and I'd started, after writing my first book, I started reading more. And then I joined a writing group, and it turns out that it was a worldwide one with about 12 of us helped each other. And one of the other guys, I started chatting with him through email, and they all had fantasy names, so I had no idea who he was. Turns out his dad used to work for my dad, and we grew up right down the road from each other.
As we say, amazing. So Gary Luck, what's Gary to you with the books?
So Gary is an ecologist, and I have no idea how it eventuated, but we decided we're going to write this book, and I thought with his background as ecology, it gives us credibility at least with what we're doing. So then we just started writing about a bird, and he chose the bird because it has to be able to be seen all along the Murray-Darling Basin.
Right.
And we just thought we'd teach kids about drought. We thought we'd do one on drought, one on bushfires, one on floods. I don't think the floods one's going to happen, but we did do the first.
Are you still writing?
We're both still writing, but like he's got his own plans, I've got my own plans. So yeah, life gets in the way. So.
Well, collaborations are often difficult to keep everything together.
Yeah, and I think we've taught each other a lot because we're different eggs a lot. And
that's what makes something interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, speaking of interesting, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment with our very special guest, Ian. We're talking with Ian Boyd about his writing. There's also something we'll talk about in a minute that's actually very valid that we do need to talk about, but let's quickly talk about this book.
Yes, that book. So I did 2 books at once. One was with Gary, which was a sequel to The Melody Finch. So this is about a boy turns into a Tasmanian devil and has to escape because there's a bushfire into the mountains in Tasmania. So with this one, we focused on bushfires, and it's good the research you have to do for these things. I got a mate who's a fireman, so I researched a bit talking to him, and
But it opens a door, doesn't it? It opens a door in your mind to so much more.
Yeah, I mean, writing has taught me so much more than I ever imagined. Just researching things random, for ideas.
Well, the next book was The Frog Bridge.
Yes.
Now, what stimulated this?
So this one is actually one my wife Michelle prompted me to write because I had a bit of a story about... so my brother died at the age of 10 from leukemia. We moved around a lot before that with Dad's job, and then we settled into Mount Barker, which was a small town then.
I went to school there. I know it well.
Yeah, well, it was 3,500 people.
Yep.
You went to school there?
Yeah.
Oh, right. There you go.
Mount Barker High.
Mount Barker High. Well, Gary Luck went to Mount Barker High. I didn't. I went to school in Adelaide. But we'd been there for a little over a year and a half, I think, and then Peter died. So I had a story that started with Dad was fairly, I just want to move on with life. So he decided, after I don't know what amount of time, he just said, we're going to get rid of all Peter's things. And he said to me, you have to go and pick 3 or 4 things to keep and then the rest going. And so there was a short story I'd written around that.
What a difficult thing, though. I mean, for any parent, but equally for a sibling.
Well, as it's turned out, it's opened a lot of sort of conversations about sibling survivors, which at the time was really, no one talked about it.
No.
At all.
Well, certainly anything that had the sea in front of it, nobody wanted to talk about.
No. I mean, I've had a lot of people since writing this actually talk about, I wrote a blog post about the sibling survivorship, and I guess a lot of people have opened up and said to me, I lost a sibling or whatever, and it was the same. You didn't talk about it because, unfortunately, there's no way of wrapping it up into a nice ending, really.
No.
But
it's not. No, you're right.
There's nothing. Right? And as much as in the book here, I actually went on with the book. I changed it and I integrated it with a fictional side that I wanted to talk about, and the 2 stories have become one. But the family life was how it was, and I guess I painted Dad not in the best light, but really my sister and I, for what Mum and Dad went through, when we could look back later, we realised there's no way they could have got through it, I don't think, any better than they did.
Just had to black out the situation.
They did, and for no one's perfect in that, I don't think.
No, it's true.
So
when did you get the prognosis?
Well, Peter died, would have been 75. Then about 30 years later, Dad died of prostate cancer. Then about 9 years after that, Mum died of what's called a gastrointestinal stromal tumour, which is called a GIST cancer. And then 3 months after Mum died, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. She would have been late 40s, mid 40s. She had 9 months of treatment, and I look back now and realise how terrifying that would have been for her, that no one in our family had survived.
Yes.
She was told, though, that she had a good chance of survival, and she's survived, and she's looking pretty strong with it now. And then I guess a few years after, so it was 3.5 years ago, I was 52, and I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, but apparently not linked to what my father's was.
Right.
But as it's progressed, it's changed, and I have 2 kinds of cancer now. So one of them's under control, the prostate cancer. It's still there. It's an aggressive one, but they're pretty good at managing it.
Yeah.
I've developed another one called neuroendocrine cancer, which is the first one morphed into the second one, and that's in my liver. And I'm being treated with the second attempt now. The first one worked for a while of chemo, and then it started growing back again. So they're trying a different one now, which I've had 2 rounds of chemo.
And how do you feel?
Fine. Like I've coped really well with chemo.
Mm-hmm.
So at no point, I guess, apart from losing my hair's curly, and it may...
Well, it suits you at the moment.
It does.
And you've got it as well, which is always
That's
good.
right. Well,
but you were saying before your eyebrows have disappeared.
Yeah, they never came back. Yeah, it's strange. Like, no hair above the lip, no eyebrows. All the rest of it keeps coming back.
Oh, what a shame. They wouldn't have to shave anymore.
Yeah, I know, but I've got a shave down there.
Yeah.
But no, it may fall out again. I don't know. There seems to be no predictable thing that goes with anything to do with cancer. They just go, we're going to try this, and you keep going. And I, with each round of chemo, so I've had 26 lots of chemo, they kind of, I feel a bit ordinary for a few days, and then I bounce back, and it's 3 weeks apart. Whereas my sister, they're a week apart, and she found it really hard because she just bounced back.
Do you think the fact that you've been so physical with the landscaping and with the being outside, the walking every day?
I think so. I do think so. I mean, I've got nothing else wrong with me. Like, I know people sometimes with diabetes and things like that, chemo knocks them really hard. I guess you would say I'm fortunate in that I don't have anything else to deal with. And I fight through it pretty well, and I exercise, I go to the gym, I do everything I can, and I like feeling fit. So yeah, I think that's probably helped. I'm sure it has. So I don't know.
So are you writing about this? Are you keeping it? Are you keeping a diary or?
No. I've read, I guess, enough things where they say don't write about your cancer story because people don't particularly want to hear it. I don't know, but
well, I'm not so sure about that. If I were in your position, I'd like to meet somebody like you that's so positive.
Well, I do. There is a guy around with a similar cancer to the one mine started as, and he's been living for 8 years. And look, I like listening to him talk about it, and he's written some things that my wife's found really helpful. But he does say some negative things, and I keep thinking if you've just been diagnosed, you don't really want to hear, because I've got a list of all the things I've done.
Well, it's not so much the negative things, it's more, actually talking now, it's more the positive things.
I prefer to hear, I think the positive things are better to hear.
It's about being positive, I think. That's more the point. Yeah. And exercise, because now there's a lot of evidence that shows how much exercise you have relates directly to how quickly your body can help.
Yeah, and prostate cancer, I think, more than anything, apart from even the doctors would say after what they do, the only thing that they know with 100% certainty helps is exercise. So, and staying positive. It's positive.
So you're on the right path. But going through this period of your life, the fact that you've written what you've written, it strikes me that there's a story here, there's a book here.
There may be, I don't know.
Even if it's a whole life story, because you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah. I mean, if I could write anything, I would like to write just the positive things. Like I keep a list of all the things I've done since I was diagnosed, and I think a lot of those things I wouldn't have done had I not been diagnosed. And I do see, and I think last interview you did, she said the same thing, Gab, I think it was, that a lot of the positive things that come out of it is it's almost like a choice. You choose to make the most of it, and in some ways it opens your mind and goes, okay, I'm not worrying about all the problems, and anyone who doesn't want to go along the ride with me, I'm not going to carry them along. No. I'm just going to go, and if you actually focus on doing something for someone else rather than yourself, it takes the burden off you being the centre of it all, even because you so much are the centre of it, whether you want to be or not.
Exactly. So, yes, you've got a whole lot of people fussing around you.
Yeah.
Testing. Your wife is over there.
Yeah.
How have you found coping with all of this?
one thing to the next. You go, what am I dealing with now? And then moving on.
I hope you heard that. She said you just go from one thing to the next.
Yeah,
and just move on.
Keep moving on. And in a lot of ways, it's probably been harder for her than me. And you do hear that a lot because, I mean, they don't know what the future holds, you know, for them. And
for any of us.
And they can't do anything. All they
walk
can
out
do,
and get hit by a bus.
Yeah. And when you're watching someone else, so you just there watching it happen.
Yeah.
And you do. I said to Michelle the other day that I think before something like cancer, you live and there's almost like this bubble in front of you, which is your future, and you just assume it. You don't even. It's there without you thinking about it. And then when you get diagnosed, all of a sudden that bubble disappears, and then you're now living without that. It's like a safety threshold that. You know, I'm moving forward, and you're going, now I don't know if I am or not. And well, three and a half years ago, I didn't know if I'd see the year out. So, you know, you just go, it's like being born again in a way, because when you're born, no one can tell you, like my brother would say.
Yes, what's next?
What's next, you know? So I feel like, you know, just, yeah.
No,
live.
a great attitude to have. So of all the things you've done in your life, what do you feel you will, is it the books that you'll be most remembered for, do you think?
I don't. I kind of don't feel like I'll be remembered for anything.
No, well, the good thing about you, and this is why you're on the show tonight, is because you were talking about your next project, which is really interesting, and we'll be back in a moment to talk about that next project. We're talking to Ian Boyd about a very special project that you've got in your mind for the future.
Yeah.
Please explain.
Please explain. It started strangely. Another author friend rang me and asked me to do a particular event, and she had an idea. And I thought, I'd like to do something more interesting. So I asked my daughter, I don't know why, I just happened to ask her, you got any ideas? And without even looking it up, she actually threw something back at me and she said, there's this thing that she used to live in Chicago with her partner who's from Chicago, and they met through improv through the Fringe. And they said, there's this thing we do for kids over in America, but it's not done here. So we could do that. And before I knew it, authors like me and the author I'd been speaking to, my friend, I had to remove us from the whole project because authors aren't improv. We sit and we analyse the crap out of it.
But actors are improv. People.
Actors are improv. And I'd originally had illustrators in it as well. And we let the illustrators in. We thought, well, you know what? A lot of illustrators do it kind of improv, where they go to schools and they show kids how to illustrate. And musicians are already in it because that's what Hunter, my daughter's partner, does. He plays the music, and he does that with adult improv as well.
Yep.
And he's actually one of the main people in Australia who knows how to do that now. So we've thought, well, you know, we'll give it a go and test the waters, see if there's a place for it.
Were you looking particularly to travel around schools with this?
Well, we would like to do that. We'd try to keep open to anything, really.
What are you calling it? Have you got a name?
Story Snorts.
Story Snorts.
Yeah. So we realised...
Like stories...
Yeah.
Right.
No, snorts as in laughing till you snort.
Oh, laughing till... Okay.
Yeah. And,
so the snort was right, I just didn't laugh first.
Yeah, depends how you want to laugh, if that's how you want to laugh.
Okay, yes. We all know that sort of laughter that you start snorting and then everybody goes. Then.
That's it. And so, yeah, we're just going to throw a few ideas together, and all the actors, they do it anyway, so they all know what they're doing, and the musicians know what they're doing.
So this is also where you take ideas from the audience and turn that into...
Yeah. And
like
we've got to
ask for words or names or situations.
Plots. Or title of a book, which is probably the way we'll go. So, and we're just going to see what happens, and we actually would like to be involved. I'm sure I'm allowed to say a whole heap of things that...
Well, we've got the Fringe here in Adelaide and a whole lot of other things that happen, so...
Yep. So, anything where there's going to be kids, we would like to get it in there. It's just a matter of whether Australia is welcoming to improv for kids. So.
Oh, definitely. I can tell you that there is definitely an interest in improv for adults. So I see no reason children are just young adults.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't work just as well with them. And I think they'd find it delightful.
We've just got to get it right.
Well, because they feel, in circumstances like that, the kids will feel like, oh, I've contributed to that. So they feel like they're part of the exercise.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I think so.
Ian, it's been lovely talking to you because... the positivity that you've had in our conversation prior to this one has been really encouraging to anybody who's going through what you're going through, and you'd never know.
No. Oh, unless you look close at my eyebrows and then you might, yes.
So beware of eyebrowless men.
That's right.
No, well, good luck for the future, and I hope this project really comes off and envelops your whole world with excitement.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm looking forward to it.
And thank you very much for being part of our time this time. So until next time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.